New Orleans, a city known for its vibrant culture, rich history, and the ever-present rhythm of jazz that fills its streets. A city pulsing with life, music, and celebration. Every year, the streets come alive with the colors and sounds of Mardi Gras, a festival that draws people from all corners of the world. But on this Mardi Gras, the air hung heavy with a different kind of music, the mournful wail of sirens. The joyous laughter and melodies were replaced by the urgent cries of emergency responders. The river, usually a stage for joyous parades, was now a scene of unimaginable horror. The waters that once carried the echoes of celebration now bore witness to a tragedy that would forever change the city. The Queen of the Mississippi, a majestic riverboat, was no more. This grand vessel, a symbol of the city's enduring spirit and history, had been reduced to a memory, ripped apart in a fiery explosion, leaving behind only smoke, debris, and a chilling silence. The once proud riverboat now lay in ruins, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. 543 souls lost in a blink, families shattered, lives extinguished. The pain and sorrow etched on the faces of the survivors were a testament to the magnitude of the loss. The city, draped in the colorful remnants of its interrupted celebration, struggled to comprehend the scale of the tragedy. The festive decorations now seemed like a cruel mockery of the joy that had been so abruptly stolen. It was a wound so deep, so raw, that it threatened to scar the very soul of New Orleans. The streets, once filled with laughter and music, were now heavy with grief and silence. Among the first responders, ATF Special Agent Doug Carlin surveyed the carnage, his face grim. He had been called to many scenes of destruction, but this one was different. He had seen his share of violence, but the raw devastation of this scene sent a shiver down his spine. The scale of the destruction was almost too much to bear. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, this was no accident. The patterns of destruction, the timing, everything pointed to a sinister hand behind the tragedy. This was an act of deliberate, calculated malice. This was murder. The realization hit him hard, and he knew that finding the perpetrator would be a race against time, a quest for justice for the innocent lives lost. As the investigation unfolded, every piece of evidence, every clue, would be crucial. The team worked tirelessly, knowing that the answers they sought were hidden in the charred remains of the riverboat. The community, though devastated, began to come together. In the face of such overwhelming loss, the people of New Orleans showed their resilience. Candlelight vigils were held and stories of heroism and survival emerged. Memorials sprang up along the riverbank, a sea of flowers and candles paying silent tribute to those who had perished. The city mourned, but it also began to heal, drawing strength from its shared grief. As days turned into weeks, the investigation made progress. Leads were followed, suspects were questioned, and slowly a picture of the events leading up to the explosion began to form. Finally, arrests were made. The perpetrators, driven by motives that seemed incomprehensible, were brought to justice. The city could begin to find closure, knowing that those responsible would answer for their crimes. New Orleans, a city that had faced so much, began to rebuild. The spirit of the city, though bruised, was unbroken. Life returned to the streets, and the music, though tinged with sorrow, played on. The ferry explosion would never be forgotten, but neither would the resilience and strength of New Orleans. In the face of tragedy, the city had shown its true colors, and they were as vibrant and enduring as ever. Carlin, a man who walked through the world with the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories on his shoulders, was no stranger to the dark underbelly of society. His eyes, often shadowed with fatigue, had seen more than most could bear. Yet, it was this very burden that fueled his relentless pursuit of justice. Each case he took on was not just a job, but a mission, a quest to bring light to the darkest corners of human nature. He threw himself into the investigation with a fervor that bordered on obsession. Every piece of debris, every fragment of evidence was meticulously examined. To Carlin, these were not just remnants of a crime scene. They were pieces of a larger, intricate puzzle that he was determined to solve. His colleagues often marveled at his ability to see connections where others saw only chaos. Every shred of evidence was a puzzle piece he was determined to fit into the larger picture. He relentlessly pursued every lead, no matter how insignificant it seemed. His sharp mind cut through the chaos like a knife, dissecting each clue with surgical precision. The investigation led him to a burnt-out apartment, a place that once held life and now stood as a charred reminder of violence. The apartment's walls were scorched black, the air still thick with the acrid smell of smoke. It was a scene of devastation, but to Carlin, it was also a treasure trove of information. The apartment belonged to Claire Kuchever, a young woman who had gone missing days before the explosion. Her disappearance had initially been a mystery, but now it seemed to be a crucial piece of the puzzle. The walls, once vibrant with life, now stood as silent witnesses to the tragedy that had unfolded. Carlin moved through the apartment with a practiced eye, noting every detail, every anomaly. He found traces of explosives, the same type used on the ferry. This discovery was a significant breakthrough, but it was not the only one. Inside, Carlin found traces of explosives, the same type used on the ferry. He also found something else, a photograph of Claire. Her face was creased in fear, standing next to a man with cold, calculating eyes. This photograph was more than just a piece of evidence. It was a window into the last moments of Claire's life, a glimpse into the terror she must have felt. The photograph showed Claire looking scared, standing next to a man with a menacing stare. Carlin felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no coincidence. Claire was connected to the bombing, and this man, he was sure, held the key to unraveling the truth. The photograph was a crucial link, a thread that could lead him to the mastermind behind the bombing. Her face creased in fear, standing next to a man with cold, calculating eyes. Carlin felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no coincidence. Claire was connected to the bombing, and this man, he was sure, held the key to unraveling the truth. The investigation took a sharp turn, the focus shifting from recovering the dead to hunting down a killer. The clock was ticking. This was no coincidence. Claire was connected to the bombing, and this man, he was sure, held the key to unraveling the truth. The investigation took a sharp turn, the focus shifting from recovering the dead to hunting down a killer. The clock was ticking. Carlin knew that finding this man, understanding his motives, was the only way to bring justice to the victims of the Queen of the Mississippi. The photograph was a crucial link, a thread that could lead him to the mastermind behind the bombing. Carlin's mind raced as he pieced together the fragments of the case. Who was this man? What was his connection to Claire? And why had he targeted the ferry? These questions swirled in Carlin's mind, driving him to dig deeper, to uncover the truth that lay hidden beneath layers of deception. The focus of the investigation shifted dramatically. No longer was it just about recovering the dead and understanding the explosion. It was now about hunting down a killer. The urgency of the situation was palpable. Carlin and his team worked around the clock, their determination unwavering. They knew that every second counted, that the killer could strike again at any moment. Carlin knew that finding this man, understanding his motives, was the only way to bring justice to the victims of the Queen of the Mississippi. The weight of this responsibility bore down on him, but it also fueled his resolve. He would not rest until the truth was uncovered, until the victims had the justice they deserved. The investigation was far from over, but Carlin was ready for the challenge. He would follow every lead, examine every clue, and stop at nothing to bring the killer to justice. Carlin's investigation led him to a top-secret government facility, home to a revolutionary surveillance program codenamed Snow White. The program, he learned, was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't just about watching the present, it was about peering into the past. The scientists explained that Snow White used a complex network of satellites and algorithms to capture and store a continuous feed of visual data from across the globe. It was like rewinding the world, they said, a way to witness any event no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. But Carlin sensed there was more to it, a hidden truth lurking beneath the surface. His instincts proved right. As he delved deeper, he uncovered the program's true potential. Snow White wasn't just a window to the past, it was a doorway. It was a way to travel back in time. The revelation hit Carlin like a physical blow. The implications were staggering. If he could go back, could he prevent the explosion? Could he save Claire? Could he rewrite the past and erase the tragedy that haunted him? Carlin knew the risks, the potential paradoxes that came with tampering with the delicate fabric of time. He had read countless theories, each more terrifying than the last. The idea of creating a ripple that could alter the course of history was daunting, yet the stakes were too high to ignore. The lives lost, the futures shattered, all weighed heavily on his mind. But the faces of the victims, the memory of Claire's terrified eyes in the photograph, fueled his determination. He had to try. Claire had been more than just a name on a list. She had been a friend, a confidant. Her laughter, her kindness, all snuffed out in an instant. The thought of her final moments haunted him, pushing him to take the leap. He convinced the scientists to send him back, just 48 hours before the explosion. It wasn't easy. The team was skeptical, worried about the ethical implications and the potential fallout. But Carlin's resolve was unshakable. He presented his case with a passion that left no room for doubt. They had to act, and they had to act now. They warned him of the dangers, the unpredictable consequences of altering the past. The scientists spoke of time loops, alternate realities, and the possibility of erasing his own existence. But Carlin was undeterred. He had already made up his mind. The potential rewards far outweighed the risks. He couldn't stand by and do nothing. He had to at least try to warn someone, to plant a seed of doubt, to stop the bomber before it was too late. The plan was simple, yet fraught with uncertainty. A note, hastily scribbled, containing the time and location of the planned attack. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of countless lives. He chose to send a message, a simple note with the time and location of the planned attack. He hoped that someone, anyone, would find it and take it seriously. The note was his lifeline, his last-ditch effort to change the course of events. It was a gamble, but one he was willing to take. He slipped it into the evidence box containing Claire's belongings, hoping against hope that it would reach the right hands. The box was a time capsule of sorts, a collection of memories and mementos. He prayed that his message would stand out, that it would catch someone's eye and prompt them to act. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was all he could do. The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he had to believe in the possibility of change. He had to hold on to the hope that his actions would make a difference. The alternative was too grim to consider. As he was pulled back to the present, a wave of nausea washed over him. The journey through time was disorienting, leaving him feeling unsteady and drained. He clutched his stomach, trying to steady his breathing. The physical toll was immense, but the emotional weight was even greater. He had no way of knowing if his message had been received, if he had changed anything at all. The uncertainty was maddening. He replayed the events in his mind, searching for any sign that his efforts had made a difference. But the present remained unchanged, a stark reminder of the fragility of his mission. The weight of his actions, the burden of the future settled heavily on his shoulders. He had taken a leap of faith, driven by desperation and hope. Now all he could do was wait and see if his gamble had paid off. The future was uncertain, but he had done everything in his power to change it. And for now, that had to be enough.